is there accountability? Is accountability a real thing? Accountability is part of the illusion, because accountability supposes control, and there is no control. What does surrender mean? What does it mean to surrender? Why do all the big spiritual works tell us to surrender? The Bible, why does the Tao Te Ching tell us to stand in the center of the circle? To be the observer. What happens when you surrender? You're giving up the illusion of control. How can there be sin? How can there be guilt and regret and shame? How can there be expectation or stress or worry? All these things suppose control when there is no control. Control is part of the illusion. Control is your ego creating separation. Control is your ego thinking you're somebody doing something. When you're the observer, we're the observer. Accountability is what takes place on the ego plane, where there's a bunch of egos interacting with each other. When you surrender to God, God's working through you. There's no accountability. Accountability supposes control. There is no control. That's all part of the illusion. The ego, that's all part of the cycles of thought, getting trapped. Well, you need to be held accountable. You need to be held accountable if you're somebody doing something, right? If you're somebody doing something, which is what? Your ego. But when you're dissolving all your attachments and staying present and surrendering, why does the Bible say, give it all up to God and don't worry about a thing? What is surrender? Just surrender. Give it all up. You don't got to worry about a thing. What is surrender? Surrender is giving up the illusion of control. There is no control, right? That's accountability. Another thing I wanted to mention is why I don't read books anymore. Why don't I read books anymore? Because eventually we come to the conclusion that we don't need to seek knowledge. Again, coming back to surrender, everything's telling us to surrender. Surrender means giving up all your attachments. We don't need to seek anything. We need to empty our mind. This is why I focus on reconstituting our mind, which is what? Cleaning and emptying the mind, giving it all up, dissolving the ego. Every moment we're in the present moment, we're dissolving our ego because we're detaching from the ego, right? We're detaching from the cycles of thought. So if we want to receive things like divine understanding and divine inspiration and divine perspective, this comes from giving it all up, from emptying the mind, because that's what all these works are telling us to do. They're telling us to surrender. And when we do that, we don't need to seek for anything in this world. The divine will give us everything we need to give. That's why it's telling us to surrender. That's telling us to stand in the center of the circle and be the observer, because we don't need to control anything. We don't need to think we're controlling anything. Remember, control is an illusion. What the expectation is the ego vying for control. What shame and guilt and regret. All these things suppose control, and sin supposes a choice or control. People say, you have a choice. You have a choice. You can only ever make one choice, and that's the choice you make. Everything that happens was always going to happen because it happens, right? And you can only act based on your chemistry, conditioning of level of understanding. Remember, we're just nature running off. We are the observer. We just think, big word, think we're somebody doing something. We think we're in control. What happens when we stop thinking? We dissolve all of these attachments. These are just attachments that keep us trapped in the illusion. And as long as we're attached to thinking we're in control or thinking there's accountability is attached to the ego. Accountability supposes control. Because if you want to hold someone accountable, you're saying that's something that takes place on the ego level, right? On the attachment level. But if we give it all up to God, there's no thinking, there's no worrying, there's no attachments. So you're just playing off. You're just nature playing off. You're God. You're using your vessel. You're a vessel for God. That's what you are when you surrender. When you give it all up, all your attachments, the divine is flowing through you. We have the circle. Well, everybody knows the circle by now. I hope we have the circle, right? Higher self, This is what happens when you give up all attachments. If we're dealing with accountability, you're attached. You're attached because you think you have control. There is no control. What's surrender? Surrender is giving up control. So if you want accountability, if you think you're making choices, that's your ego thinking there's control. That's your ego being attached. That's your ego thinking you're somebody doing something. That's creating separation. That's creating separation between the whole. The whole is standing in the center of the circle, giving up all of our attachments. So I've made so many videos about the illusion of control. Because remember, what is surrender? It's giving up the illusion of control. Because when you're surrendered, you're not attached to outcomes. You're not attached to being somebody, doing something, or something happening to you. You're not attached to the suffering. The only reason we're stuck in suffering is because we're identifying with the suffering, because we think we're somebody suffering. We're not observing it. Remember, we're God observing itself. But we get caught in the illusion. So we think we're somebody. We think we're suffering. We think there's accountability and choice. Oh, well, I have a choice. I got to do this or that. Really? So you make your decision. And now think about it. That was the only decision you were ever going to make. You were always going to make that decision. Why? Because you made it. You were never going to make another decision. You were never going to make another decision. We can only ever make one decision. We're nature running off. We're flowing. We're in a play. It's already written. We just think we're the actor. We're identifying with the actor. We have to stop identifying the actor. We have to be the observer. We are the observer. And once we realize that, this is how we change the world. This is how we break through these cycles of suffering we're caught in. This is how we break free from the illusion. And the more we break free from the illusion and get toward our higher self in the center of the circle, the more we do that, the more we can help others break free. So in terms of going back to why I don't read books, because if you want to allow the divine, look at all these people from the past, all these geniuses who came up with Tesla. Says, he received his information from aliens, or what do you want to say, Einstein. They were emptying their mind. That's what they were doing. They were emptying their mind. They gave it all up. They weren't searching for information. They emptied their mind, and this is what they were chosen to do. This is what they're chosen to present. What's happening for me when I'm reconstituting my mind? This is the divine understanding I'm receiving. Emptying my mind. I'm not searching for this. Yes, I read about these things in like the Tao Te Ching and thing, but did I understand them? You know what I mean? That's the thing. I received lots of understandings of things I wouldn't be able to think about understanding when my mind is empty, when I'm staying present. It's wild. You just randomly, you just receive these understandings and be like, whoa. Because I'm not seeking for them. Because you have to open the channels of communication with the divine. How do we open the channels of communication with the divine? We have to dissolve the ego through staying present, through purifying the vessel, right? Dissolving the ego, staying present, purifying the vessel, empty the mind, reconstitute the mind. This opens the channels of communication with the divine. And this allows us to receive these divine guidance and the divine understanding and the divine perspectives, these higher perspectives. We have to dissolve our attachments to get to the highest perspective. Remember, if you think you know something, you're caught in the illusion, because there's always a higher perspective. There's the divine higher self, God perspective in the middle of the circle, who's not attached to anything. I keep seeing these videos about Neuralink. Neuralink, you're caught in the illusion, because there's always a higher perspective. You think Neuralink's going to make it, gonna improve make you smarter or whatever it's going to do. You know what I mean? What about cosmic consciousness? Giving it all up. I am God's eternal love pouring forth. Namaste.